The crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across the marble floors of the Grand Peninsula Hotel's ballroom. I adjusted my too-tight bow tie for the 100th time that evening, carefully balancing a tray of champagne flutes filled with liquid that cost more than my weekly salary. My name is Ella Martinez, and at 23, I had mastered the art of being invisible among Silicon Valley's elite. Tonight's party was particularly lavish, a celebration of some tech merger I'd overheard the guests discussing. Women in designer gowns that could pay my mother's medical bills for a year glided past me, their diamond earrings catching the light. Men in tailored suits worth more than my entire wardrobe congregated in small groups, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings as they discussed their latest ventures and acquisitions. I weaved through the crowd with practiced ease, my black server's uniform helping me blend into the background. This wasn't just another shift for me, it was survival. Every tip, every extra hour meant another bill paid, another week my mother could get her medication, another textbook for my brother Max's upcoming college applications. Being invisible wasn't just my job, it was my life strategy. The weight of the champagne tray was beginning to strain my arm when I heard him, Leo Davidson, the notorious tech CEO known as much for his arrogance as his success. His voice carried across the room, loud and demanding, as it always did at these events. I'd served him before, noticed how he never once looked servers in the eye, how he'd snap his fingers when he wanted something, as if we were trained pets. The deal was practically handed to me, Leo boasted to his admirers, gesturing wildly with his empty champagne glass. These startup kids think they can play in the big leagues, but they don't understand real power. I tried to skirt around his group, but he was moving backward, too engrossed in his story to notice anything around him. Time seemed to slow as his expensive Italian shoes caught the hem of my pants. The tray tilted, and I felt myself losing balance. There was a moment, just a fraction of a second, where I thought I might recover. I didn't. The crash of crystal against marble was deafening. Champagne sprayed across the floor, across Leo's custom suit, and then I was falling. The ornamental pool behind me, meant to be a sophisticated water feature, broke my fall with a spectacular splash. The silence lasted exactly 2 seconds before the laughter began. Dozens of phones appeared, recording my humiliation for their social media entertainment. My uniform clung to me as I surfaced, mascara running down my cheeks, chlorine burning my eyes. But it wasn't the cold water that made me feel like I couldn't breathe. It was the wall of mocking faces surrounding the pool. Leo didn't even turn around fully. He just waved a dismissive hand and announced loudly, "Someone get the help a towel and bill her for the suit." More laughter followed. I wanted to sink back under the water and disappear completely. But then, through the blur of my tears and the forest of phones, a different voice cut through the chaos. "That's enough." The authority in those 2 words silenced the room immediately. Through my dripping hair, I saw him approach, Archer Malcolm, the evening's host and founder of the Malcolm Foundation. Unlike the other guests, he wasn't laughing. He wasn't filming. Instead, he was removing his jacket and extending his hand toward me. "Are you all right?" he asked, helping me out of the pool. His voice was quiet but carried the weight of genuine concern. Before I could respond, he turned to address Leo. "Mr. Davidson, I believe you owe this young woman an apology." Leo's face flushed red. It was clearly her fault. "I saw everything," Archer interrupted smoothly. "And I believe your statement about billing her suggests you know exactly who caused this accident." His tone was pleasant, but there was steel beneath it. "Now, shall we discuss your company's recent handling of user data, or would you prefer to apologize?" The color drained from Leo's face. The apology he muttered was barely audible, but it didn't matter. Archer was already guiding me away from the crowd, signaling to the event manager to bring towels. In a quiet corner of the ballroom, wrapped in plush hotel towels, I finally found my voice. "Thank you, Mr. Malcolm, but you didn't have to do that. I'm used to being treated as invisible," he finished my sentence with a gentle but challenging look. "That's precisely why I had to do something. Tell me, what's your name?" "Ella." Ella Martinez. Well, Ella Martinez, I'd like you to come to my office tomorrow morning. I have a proposition for you. I started to protest. I had another catering shift scheduled. I couldn't afford to miss work. But he handed me his business card with a time written on the back. Trust me, he said. It'll be worth your time. That night, in the tiny apartment I shared with my mother and brother, I stared at the card until the elegant lettering blurred. Max found me still awake at midnight, sitting at our cramped kitchen table. You should go, he said, pulling up a chair beside me. At 17, my brother Max was already wiser than his years, shouldering our family's struggles alongside me. What's the worst that could happen? He asked. I could hope, I whispered, and hoping is dangerous when you can't afford disappointment. Max grabbed my hand. Sis, you've spent the last 5 years being everyone else's support system. Maybe it's time to let someone support you. The Malcolm Foundation occupied the top floors of a gleaming downtown high-rise. The next morning, wearing my one professional outfit, a thrifted blazer and my most confident smile, I stepped into Archer Malcolm's office. The view of the bay was breathtaking, but it was the wall of photos that caught my attention. Communities transformed, schools built, lives changed. Those are reminders, Archer said, noticing my interest, of why we do what we do. He gestured for me to sit. Tell me, Ella, what do you know about our foundation? You work with underserved communities, I said. Education initiatives, healthcare access, economic development programs. I didn't mention how I'd stayed up researching until my eyes burned, how I'd memorized their mission statement. Correct, he said. But what we really do is recognize potential, in communities, in ideas, and in people. He leaned forward. Like you? Me? I almost laughed. Mr. Malcolm, I'm a server. I barely finished community college because I had to work full-time. You're a young woman who's been supporting her family since you were 18. You put your brother through high school while working multiple jobs. You handle difficult people with grace, even when they don't deserve it. He smiled. I did my research too. The position he offered was beyond anything I could have imagined, community outreach coordinator. The salary made me dizzy. The benefits package included family health insurance. But why me? I had to ask. There must be hundreds of qualified candidates. Because you understand both sides of the equation, he explained. You know what it's like to need help, and you know what it's like to navigate spaces of privilege. That perspective is invaluable. I thought about declining, about staying safe in my invisible life. But Max's words echoed in my mind, maybe it's time to let someone support you. When do I start? I asked. The first month was terrifying. I felt like an imposter in my new business clothes, sitting in meetings where my opinion was actually sought after. But slowly, something began to change. I coordinated my first community project, a medical clinic in my old neighborhood. I saw the immediate impact access to healthcare had on families like mine. My mother's condition improved with better treatment. Max started getting acceptance letters from colleges. 6 months later, I stood in front of the foundation's board, presenting my proposal for an education initiative. My voice didn't shake. My hands were steady. Through the glass walls, I caught a glimpse of my reflection, confident, visible, powerful. That evening, I visited the Grand Peninsula Hotel again, not as a server, but as a representative of the Malcolm Foundation. As I walked past the pool where I'd fallen, I smiled, remembering the girl who thought she was drowning in humiliation. She didn't know she was actually being baptized into a new life. Leo Davidson was there, of course. This time, when he saw me, he was the one who looked away first. But I didn't feel triumph or revenge. Instead, I felt gratitude. Sometimes our worst moments become catalysts for our greatest transformations. I'm still Ella Martinez. I still remember what it's like to be invisible. But now, I use that memory to see others who think they're invisible too. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person to really see you, to help you step into the light, and claim your space in the world. My story isn't just about going from server to success. It's about recognizing that rock bottom can become a foundation. It's about understanding that invisibility isn't a permanent state, it's just the beginning of becoming extraordinary. And now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see someone trying to blend into the background. I see someone who has learned to shine. The end.